Good evening, everybody, and welcome to For the Voters of Buffalo N.Y. I am your co-host, Brother Aymanuel Radford, and I'm joined here by a plethora of people, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. But I'm joined by my usual co-host. He's supposed to be hosting, but he decided to co-host today. My father, Brother Sam Raff. How you doing this evening, Pops?
It's a great day to be alive, and I'm blessed to have a son who can host, so I could co-host. And I'm excited.
You fed him well.
I'm excited about the opportunity to really have a conversation that I think would be really for the voters of Buffalo, New York. The For the Voters of Buffalo, New York.org is really designed to make sure that we have better informed, better educated voters, particularly about the school board and the school board election, than we've had in the past. You know, a lot of times school boards races were in May. A lot of people didn't participate in them. We were very fortunate in being able to move the school board date from May to November, and we had a record turnout. We went from, in your district, Ralph, the West District, where 800 people voted in 2019, and 2022, 9,000 people voted. So we saw over an 815% increase, and we saw that across the board. So we are assuming that this election that we're going to have Thursday, next Tuesday, is going to be the highest turnout we've ever had for an at-large voter race, than school board race. And so we're excited about being able to make sure all the people who are listening has information. Let me just start by letting everybody know. I don't know if Khalil or Renato, if this is something we can get a close up on, or but I want to just remind everybody that we have published a for the voters of Buffalo, New York voter guide. We asking everybody to go get the voter guide. It's going to give you a bio. It's going to give you a picture, and it's also going to give you an answer on the top 6 questions that people wanted to know about. You know, everything about kids reading, writing, doing math on grade level, to kids being able to have proper mental and emotional health support, to foundation aid, how we fund our schools. So it has the answers to all the board members' answer is here. So do your best, get it. And if you can't get it, we got a digital version for you. All you gotta do is scan the QR code, and it'll take you right to it. So please, everybody, let's get this voter guide and make sure you stay informed.
Where do we get those?
So these are available throughout the city. These are available right now. You can get them on Facebook, on For the Voters of Buffalo, New York. You can go to the website, for the voters of Buffalo, New York.org, and you can get to the website and you can get that information. And we're gonna have these distributed all throughout the city at churches and community centers, and corner stores. So everywhere we can get these out, we're gonna have those available. So make sure you get one, make sure you share one. So we're excited about the opportunity now to go a little bit deeper. That is about the candidates who are currently running for office. But we wanted to also have a deeper conversation. So once we elect the school board, what we want to do is make sure that as a result of electing a new school board, electing school board members, we get better outcomes in education. So what we decided to do is bring a cross section of former elected board members from different parts of the city, south, east, west, and North Buffalo, to just talk about some of the issues associated with being on the school board, and talk about some of the educational outcomes we're getting, and see if we can get some information to you, the voter, about what this new school board is going to need to do in order to get better educational outcomes.
Yeah. Again, we're committed here at For the Voters to inform voters, to make people understand exactly who they're voting for. But I think this show is going to be impactful because a lot of times we elect people and we don't know what they do. Like we elect them and they sit in these offices, and then 4 years later they show back up, say, yeah, vote for me again. So I think this show is going to be important because as much emphasis as we put on the school board race, we're now talking to a group of people who actually sat on that school board, who went to those board meetings, who actually talked about policy, who actually implemented policy, who actually know what it takes to sit on the school board, get things done, and have real conversations about it. So one of the things we want to do today is really just talk to voters and show them what it means to be on the school board. So we want you to go vote. We want you to elect the school board members, but now we want to equip you with information to now hold school board members accountable because we getting it right from the horse's mouth about exactly what a school board member does. And so we're excited about this conversation. I know I'm excited about this conversation to just learn. And emphasis on what my dad said, it's diverse. We have a diverse group of people on the stage with us. Let me do this real quick. I want to give a shout out to Rag Multimedia, Brother Khalil, and Brother Renato, who was doing all of our media stuff. If you want to go on Facebook, you can go to BWNY Broadcast on Facebook, or you can go to For the Voters of Buffalo NY on Facebook to watch us live. We are live on location at New Hope Church of God by Faith. Shout out to Bruno, the Reginald Damon, who's the pastor of this church, who allowed us to have this space. So I just want to get all those preliminaries out the way. And so first, I'm gonna pass to my dad to introduce our guests, to go introduce our guests, and then we'll get right into the first question.
Well, we didn't invite just anybody. You know what I'm saying, what we did is make sure we invited people who we knew would be able to talk frankly. I'm saying we wanted people that when they were on the school board, they spoke frankly. So there would be no issue when they got here with them trying to talk to us and being politically correct and not saying what we need to hear to get better educational outcomes. One of my great friends is Miss Sherry Byrnes, who I worked with before the school board, on the school board, and after the school board. Sherry, how you doing, and what are you getting into these days?
I'm doing just fine, Sam. Thank you. Today, I am the Director of Programs for the National Alliance on Mental Illness for Western New York. And I'll keep it real short, but in all my years of work, whether it was in literacy, whether anything that had to do with children and learning, when they hit the wall, you scratch a little bit, and where you see literacy problems, you see trauma and mental health problems. So the work hasn't changed. I'm just in a different place.
There you go. There you go. And so remind everybody, when you were elected to school board, who did you represent?
I represented the North District in what was the hottest election in living memory because I had to go hard against some city hall folks, and I wound up winning with the help of some media folks with 72% of the margin, which, if you know anything about politics, is pretty impressive.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sherry. Looking forward to that. We also have Ralph Hernandez, my fellow Marine. Hoorah. Ralph, so why don't you tell us, bring us up to speed about how you're doing that?
Good. I'm still working for the same company that I was when I was back on the board as I'm a medical administrator. I work part-time though. I don't work full-time. But I've been keeping an eye on some of the things that have been going on with the education system. And it doesn't seem that it's changing all that much, and I think that the voters need to pay really close attention to the personalities and the attitudes of these candidates, how much do they really know about education? And the list of questions that they should be asking should come from them, not from the Buffalo Teachers Federation or any organized organization, including yours and others. It should come from them, because if they're able to answer their questions, then you're probably, in line with that individual. And if it's not, then don't vote for him.
All right. Well, you getting into it already, Ralph. So we gonna get into the questions one second. But before we get there, you're also you were actually on the president of the school board. So why don't you share what district you represented?
I
And
represented the West District for
Mhm.
9 years,
Mhm.
and I served as president of the board for 2 consecutive years in 2010 and 2011.
All right, thank you. And we also have Kyle Paladino. Kyle, how you doing and what you doing these days?
These days I get up and I go to work every day, and I need the action, I need the activity. I'm very happy with that. Most people say, why aren't you retired? And I'm just not a retirement type guy, so those have to carry me out.
All right. So Kyle, you represented, tell what district you represented and when you represented.
Represented the South District. There
All
was
right.
some time ago, I think it was probably 10 years ago, when I think I was on the board for like 8 years. And it seems like a long time since I've been on the board. So I don't think much has changed from my perspective. The same problems exist. In your little discussion there, I think you hit on some of the major points. And it's time they were addressed for the benefit of these kids.
Wow. Well, you jumping right into the
At the time I served, a friend of mine, Larry Quinn, and I, we went on the board. We got elected to the board, obviously, to do what we felt was important. And what was important to us was that every child, raise the proficiency rates, give every child an opportunity for an education. And that was a very frustrating endeavor. We were fighting with Phil Rumor and the union. More importantly, the lack of respect. The administration we were fighting the administration, and we did not have the cooperation of the rest of the board. Primarily, Black representatives were on our boards. And I was very frustrated that they didn't have a clue. They were on the board for the opportunity to get their faces seen and heard.
All right.
Okay.
So before we
They
get
did-
to
they-
before we get to the details, right?
Okay.
Because we get ready. You sound like you get ready to go in, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So what we want to do though is we really want to have this we only got an hour together, and so we want to concentrate this conversation. We want to concentrate this conversation in a way that we can draw on our collective wisdom to figure out a way to get better results for our children, right? You are here because you have a particular insight that most people in Buffalo don't have. In other words, you know it as a taxpayer. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who is, contributing to the tax base that's running the school, but you also have been elected to the board and you know what this looks like from the inside, right? Most people don't have that perspective, right? And so we're at the point where we want to make a change, right? And so we got like 4 questions we want to go over. But before we go over the question, we want to give you the opportunity to say, based on your experience on the school board, if there was one thing you know from your experience that needs to be done differently, that this new school board member should consider right from the beginning, you know what I'm saying? Your personal perspective, what would that one thing be that needs to be addressed to get better outcomes? And I really want to keep the conversation focused on that. I want to keep the conversation focused on what do we need to do to get better educational outcomes when it comes to our children. We're gonna start over here with you, Sherry.
Okay. I think first of all, we have to acknowledge that the school board alone cannot fix this system. Uh, if I remember rightly, the board actually had any decision-making power over about 15% of the budget, which at the time, my colleague and dear friend Jan Peters said, we have a budget of $500 million. We ought to be able to do something. And she was right. But when so much is prescribed and is beyond your power, influence, will, desire, it can be a very frustrating place to be.
Well, let me do this, Cherry, because you started off right out the gate, just hitting a really big issue. You're saying that back then the school budget was $500 million, which now is $1.2 billion. So double plus $1.2 billion. And you saying that the board is only actually voting on 15% of that because 85% of that is already predetermined by contracts and you have no grants and you have no say so over it at all. So we've got to know school board members going in, if they think they're going in, they're going to control $1.2 billion. That's not the case. Did that surprise you when you found that out?
Yeah, it did. But I do think there are ways to deal with that. Somebody sets the priority on what's going to be the focus of going after grants. Some of it is just the routine, state aid. We have this Title I. Okay, it comes how it comes. You can spend it on what they tell you you can spend it on. There's very little wiggle room within that. You can sit on an SBMT, but I'll tell you, I didn't find that to be a very gratifying experience myself.
Well, you
so.
gave us a great starting point. So we're going to go. So right now, well, I think that's something we should tell current school board candidates to consider. Understand the budget and how much say so you have over what percentage of the budget. That's a big thing. What about you, Ralph? What's one thing you think could be done right from the beginning?
I think, the budget is certainly at the top of the list because that really drives everything. But unlike my colleague, I agree that I subscribe to the fact that, yes, you do have tremendous amount of power and say so in the budget. You're a board member. You are the superintendent's boss. You put a good professional rationale at the table why this money should be spent a certain way, and hopefully you get some of your colleagues to go with you. Remember, everything is done by majority vote on the board, so if there's no 5 votes for that budget will not go through. And if it doesn't go through, then the administration has to come back.
Okay, so that's your response to her, right? So to Sherry, right? Well, I want to know from your perspective, what's one issue that you think that could make a big impact if it was dealt with effectively?
I think more parents should get involved with knowing more about education and how it works. And please, select board members that you have something in common with. Don't just vote for a board member because they're being backed by the BTF or being backed by that organization. Do your homework, study the individual. You have that sheet,
Hmm.
that booklet there,
Yep.
read everything you can and call them. Call them on the issue, call them at home. They usually give their number. Say, what is your stand on this and why?
So you saying from your experience, if you get increased parent engagement,
Absolutely.
that can have a big impact on education outcomes in the district.
Meaningful.
Meaningful parent.
Correct.
Hey, I like that word. I mean, all right, Kyle, what about you? If you have to pick one thing that can make a difference, what would it be?
It wouldn't be what Ralph said. I mean, parent engagement is very important, but it's a very frustrating effort. The first thing I would do, I get rid of busing.
Mm.
I'd save probably $50 million in busing, and I'd use that $50 million to lower class size, okay, hire more teachers, get more structure to it, and really go all out to educate a kid. When I was there were class sizes were 30, 35 kids, and it was impossible for these teachers to teach 30 and 35 kids. Even the most dedicated teachers had a tough time with that. If we can lower that class size by getting rid of something real simple, busing, it's so stupid. Here we are taking kids out of their neighborhood. Why? When I went to school, I went home, I played in the neighborhood with the same kids I went to school with. It's insanity that we've let that ride this long. And busing we should get rid of it forever. Phil Rumor loves it because his teachers, for some reason, loved it. Okay, his teachers primarily from the suburbs. That's nonsense. Everybody working for the city should live in the city.
All right, you did two issues already: busing and a residency requirement, right?
Yeah.
So you ahead of us. You ahead of us because we get ready to go right there where you're at. But we got 3 concrete examples, and we're actually 4 concrete things that we feel like potentially that if this new school board is able to focus in and deal with these up front, the district finances, parent engagement, busing, and potential residency requirement. Those are things. So right out the gate, from experienced board members, that's their perspective. I'm gonna turn it over to Aymanuel now. He got some questions that we're gonna ask each of you to answer the questions.
Well, yeah, I kind of answered the first question. So I wanna go to the second question about the governance model, right? Some Mr. Paladino just talked about is this idea of busing and how we shouldn't do it no more. And one of the things that people say why we shouldn't do that no more is because of the governance model, right? If I live in the East District and I vote for the East District representative and my child go to North District school, I'm not actually electing my representative. I'm actually just electing a person who's near me, but that school board member might not represent my child. So one of the things that we talked about with current candidates, and we're asking you as former school board members, should we change the governance model? Should we go to all at-large seats? Should we go to a mayoral-controlled school board where he appoints people? How do you think we should relook at this governance model that we have, or do you think it's good the way it is? We'll start with you, Mr. Paladino. Come this way.
It's simple. We're electing school board people, okay? They're not the best people. We don't elect the best people in the community. If we put that responsibility on the back of the mayor, let him appoint the board, appoint the qualified people to the board, appoint the people that have a specialty that can deal with the things and that will speak up. I sat with board members who had not a clue. They were elected because they could go out there, for some reason they were popular with the neighborhood and they got elected. That's not getting elected, it's nonsense. I think that our board should be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the council, just like other positions in city government are appointed. Okay, the school board, which has huge responsibilities, $1.2 billion budget to deal with. Okay, and you've got clueless people getting
Mr.
elected.
President, you think all 9 should be appointed, or just all 9 should be appointed?
All should be appointed.
Okay, Mr. Hernandez, your position.
I still maintain that the school board should be elected by the parents or the voters. And if I was to go any which way different than what it is now, I would say we would go at large with only 5 members, eliminate 4 positions, and we just 5 members at large. That's it.
So
And
you
elected
think
by
having
the
equals too many?
elected.
So you do think we should change the governance model? You think the current governance model?
9 members is too many. You only need is 5, and at large, because then at large you represent everybody.
So you actually talk about going to an all at large board?
Correct.
No district races. You know what I'm saying? Just at large.
and you think 9 is way too many.
Way too.
Well, clearly, I'm curious why? Because I mean, you got 30,000 students in our district of 270,000 people. Why?
Too many hands in the pot spoils the pot. If you have 5 people making decisions for the entire district, you're probably gonna come out with a more consensus approach to the things that are wrong, as opposed to having 9.
Well, you probably come out with shorter meetings. I'm just saying. I mean, when I was on the board, 11 o'clock and midnight meetings.
And that ain't nothing changed. Still that way now.
That's hard. It's
Right.
hard to make good decisions when, you're operating on that kind of late hour and tired people and frayed nerves but it is so important to come to consensus.
So in terms of the governance model, what are you saying?
I don't think it's as simple as, 5 people will kind of redefine. Buffalo is based on a history of neighborhoods, culturally, socially. And many people, if they are going to engage at all, they're going to engage because they believe that those people are going to represent them. And they may prefer that they look like them or they live near them but I think it is incumbent on anybody who's elected, whether it's a sub-district or an at-large position, to understand, yes, you're at the table because you are representing what you may have come from and but you better sit at that table knowing that all of these children belong to us all.
So you saying you can't even get caught up in a cultural identity or a neighborhood identity. You got to come in, once you're elected, you got to come in and think about all children.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the governance model, though, I mean, what do you stay elected school board, district race, all at-large people, or mayor appointed, council approved? I mean, what?
We can kind of do this. Parents who are not engaged or knowledgeable, but who vote somebody popular can be a problem. But over here, if you don't know I don't know our new mayor. I have no idea where he is on anything.
But he's not elected either. I mean, he's actually appointed. You know what I'm saying?
No, but
he's not elected. He's not elected to mayor
now,
right.
And those seats are open now.
Right.
If it was an appointed board and there were any seats turning over, I don't want to be put in a situation where it depends on who's in that seat, because I have seen some unbelievable things come out of the mayor's office over the years.
So tell us what do you? So I hear you. So what would you propose? Do you think it's good the way it is now, or you think we should change governance models?
I might be able to be persuaded to go to 5 districts, and we'd have to be really careful about how that's done. But I do think that we need to keep it in. I was elected out of the parent contingency. Now, I will argue that I'm well qualified. I do the work. I show up. I know the history. I have been part of this city since I was knee-high to whatever.
But given the outcomes that we've gotten over the years, do you think we should continue with the same governance model, or should we look at something different? Because if you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got. So at this point, should we keep doing it, or should we look at something different?
This isn't going to fit, but I'm going to go here anyway. Our city is really wounded. We have incredible strengths. We have unbelievable creativity. We have people who achieve and show that it can be done. From there, we can start pointing fingers. Whose fault is it they're not all doing that? Okay. Oh, it's the parents' fault. Oh, it's the board's fault. Oh, it's the mayor's fault. It's the BMH. Name anybody you want. None of those answers is right, because, to go back to what I just said, it's on all of us. In our city, this young woman who died yesterday and took her children with her, who is my niece's friend. We need to help our young people. I'm going to give you one more example. And this isn't school board. This is every single person in this community. Get up, stand up, become knowledgeable, and do the work so that our children know they are loved, they are valued, they matter, and they're going to make a difference, because we are here to lift them.
All right.
So, I mean, I actually agree with Mr. Paladino. I think we should have a mayoral appointed school board. I think the reality is, over the years, we have not always got the most qualified candidates on school boards. Sometimes, at least from my experience, just watching, that's what bogs down meetings, right? You've got 9 people, some are which are knowledgeable, some are which are not, and you got all these people talking. Sometimes you do got too many hands in the pot. So I actually agree with both of you. I think we need to lessen the school board members, but I also think we need to go to mayoral appointed. So if we had a mayoral appointed of 5 school board members, I think that sounds great to me. Instead of 9, 9 seems like a lot. So I actually agree with you.
Well, just real quickly, just so people, just to kind of give background. So,
Also get better people stepping up, okay, to take that kind of position if they know it's gonna be a responsible board and that what they're doing will be affected.
So New York City, which is the largest school district in the state, got over 1 million kids in the school district. They have a mayoral controlled school board. And their results when they went from from elected school board to mayoral, they had a big jump in outcomes. As a matter of fact, they're the top school district in the urban school districts in New York State. And you would think because they are so large that wouldn't be the case. But again, so there's some evidence to a mayoral controlled school board, being a better result. The question is, should we look at it? You know what I'm saying? So it sounds like we got some really good answers on some different miles. What's the next question?
But let me just one last point on the mayor's. My thinking is that in New York City, you have, what is it, 9, 12, 13 million people living there.
8 million people,
The
yeah.
city of Buffalo's a lot smaller.
Right.
Okay, now.
It's a lot smaller, but it's the second largest city in New York State.
Yeah, it is. But the probability, what do you think of the probability of a mayor appointing an individual when he learns that that individual didn't vote for him?
Well, the hope is that the mayor appoints a qualified individual because the consequence of appointing somebody that's not qualified is that
Well, he's qualified, but then you'll say, did he didn't vote for you?
Okay, all right, I got you. So politics will get involved. All right, I got you. All right, next question.
Politics is politics. That's how it's important. We got about 3 minutes before we got to hit a station break, so I just want to throw it in there. So I'll start the question with you, Ms. Byrnes, and then we'll go around. Do you think we should have busing? Do you think busing is something that we should be done with, or do you think busing is something that
It was an experiment, you know what I'm saying, to integrate the schools. Because we want to desegregate schools. Is the experiment, did it work? And should we keep doing it, or should we, throw that experiment out and say it didn't work?
Complete failure. Been a complete failure.
Okay.
Busing
We
kids.
coming to you. We coming to you. We starting over here with Sherry.
I grew up in this district and I was in the first intentionally integrated classroom in this city
Wow.
pre-court order.
Wow. Now that's interesting because I was in the first class 76 that got bused. I got bused from east side of Buffalo to Pawnee Parkway to School 27 when I was in 6th grade. So we both were in the beginning of this. You said pre-court order. You was in the integrated class.
And children walked from both sides of Main Street. We were at 54 and it went to the 6th grade. And I will say the teaching staff was amazing. And our teacher stayed with us for 2 years. In those 2 years, I became who I am in terms of advocating for all children.
Okay.
And in sitting at the table and making decisions, even when there was serious disagreement or misunderstanding with some of the members at the table, because they came from very different experiences and backgrounds, we had empathy for each other and were willing to listen and respect each other. And when you cut us up into silos and we're only going to represent ourselves and we're not going to be talking about all children, and it's my neighborhood and who's loyal to me, we fail.
So you saying we need to keep busing kids?
I believe that we do. We also do not have a city that has the luxury of being able to have AP classes in every school.
That's
We
you go into a whole other issue. But we got to talk about that. But here's the point. I want to say this because we got to go to break. But I do want to say this: when we decided to desegregate schools, we had a lot more. We had a concentration of Black students on the east side, the concentration of white students on the south side, but the majority of students in the school district at that time were white. That's not the case anymore. After desegregation, a lot of South Buffalo students left out and went to West Seneca. They went to Cheektowaga. They went to private school, and that now the city is majority black. So where are we busing kids to? We busing black kids from
Sorry.
from the east side to the south side, but at this point, it's not desegregating anymore.
So I know we getting right into the conversation, but we're gonna take a quick station break. It's only for 30 seconds. So this is For the Voters. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Was it here?
Yep, straight through that door in the left, and
Okay.
all the way down to the end.
Yeah. So at this point,
All right, we are back. Thank you for joining us on For the Voters. We're right in the middle of a very,
behave yourself, Sherry.
very even conversation that is interesting. I think interesting, and I appreciate Ms. Byrnes' talk. It's always good when you talk to people who see it on both sides. You experienced as a child, and then you ended up being a board member. So that's a very good wealth of experience that is very unique.
And I was on the board when we came out from under the court order.
When we went to a choice model.
And I am going to tell you that I love that judge so much.
Judge Curtin.
Yes, Judge Curtin. And when he stood in front of us and he said, I'm not positive about this, and I will be keeping an eye on this district, because if the spirit of integration is violated or the practice becomes obviously segregationist, we can look at bringing it back.
Well, we should have brought Judge Curtin or whoever replaced him back, because the truth of the matter is, when you go look at city honors, you go look at what happened right after. So as we ended up the desegregation monitoring, it went right back to, basically.
And we're still in a world where I believe in Brown versus Board of Ed. There is no separate but equal. Here's what I see happening. The white people run away and go to all those other places. And we become a poor city of color that never gets what it needs for all of its children.
Well, they ran away from they ran away from living in the city, but they didn't run away from the jobs, because they stayed in those jobs. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. So I want to push the conversation from Mr. Hernandez. From your perspective, do you think we should end busing? Do you think it's something we should be relooking at?
Yeah, I see the situation as being able to do both, and the reason I say that is because it's going to be very difficult. Show me, over the years, and there's no doubt that most of your neighborhood schools have closed. There aren't that many neighborhood
That's
schools,
true.
especially on the east side.
Yes.
Okay, so if there is no neighborhood school here, where are these kids going to go? So you're going to tell me then that you're going to bus east siders because there are no schools there, but we're going to let the west siders and north siders and south siders stay in their neighborhoods. That would be unequal.
Well, I'm so glad you said that. First of all, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't realize that because they were busing kids off the east side, where most of the kids were at, that most of the schools on the east side, especially when you're talking about, elementary schools, you know what I'm saying? They've closed. They're apartment complexes now. You know what I'm saying? And so where you have the concentration of schools at are North Buffalo and South Buffalo. That's where the larger concentration of the schools are at. And everybody would essentially, so they'll be good, but east side kids would probably still have to be by and large bust.
Right, and the whole thing is, if you do it, let's say, for example, K through 6, we'll be busing with the little guys.
Right.
That we really can, pay close attention to them and how they begin to develop, because in those ages, in those grades is when they actually will tell you how well they're going to do in junior and high school. The high school kids, they're smart, and most of them, by the time they get to that point, they're able to get around. They're young adults, but the younger kids need some more supervision. So I favor being, maybe supervising and busing possibly, the younger children and allowing your juniors and
So you said middle school and up, you would consider
they could travel around.
right, but the elementary school, you would put them in the neighborhood schools.
That's interesting. That's an interesting perspective, because I went to school when I first went to school. I went to school 39, which is in my neighborhood. I walked to school for a large majority of my early school year, and then when we moved, I still went to 39, which I was catching a bus. Then I ended up going to Hush Tech, which was downtown. I lived on the east side. So, and then I went to High Prep too, which is on the west side. So I caught the bus all the way over to the west side. So that's interesting, because I did walk and we had a bunch of us that walked, and it was fun. We all had friends. It was cool. We walked to school. We walked home from school. It was the experience was great. So that is interesting. The younger ones walking and going.
Yeah.
Which is also the suburban model. And the suburban model, you look at what they have the elementary. There are more elementary schools, and they go to in the elementary school. Then you have a middle school, and usually only one or two high schools. Everybody go to the same high school, but yeah.
Mr. Paladino.
I think I've expressed my,
Yeah.
there's gonna be exceptions to a general rule, but a general rule, getting rid of busing and using that savings to lower class sizes is,
Can't do it.
I think that's a win-win.
Well, Sherry makes a good point, though, right? Because you can get rid of busing. You're right. That's $60 million, right? But that's money that's reimbursed from the state. So you can't just take the money that unless you
Transportation.
and say we're gonna take it from transportation and use it.
You let me handle it.
Okay. All right.
That's baloney.
So
That's an excuse that
Well, but in the short term, you would have to do both though. You would have to, you wouldn't be. It ain't like it's a budget we control and you could just move money from one line to another line. You would have to go to the state and get an authorization to do something. Which, and listen, that's not impossible, right? It's just something that have to be factored if we're serious about doing it.
Yeah, but what I think is important here in this conversation is that we're talking about doing something different. I think that's really what at least as a young person hearing the conversation is what my issue is, right?
I agree.
We-
You can't keep doing the same thing.
yeah, we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again because we see the effects of that. And
Yeah.
I know one of the examples I always harp on is that Homestead 156 is in the middle of the Langfield projects, one of the biggest housing complexes in Buffalo. How many of those kids that live in Langfield project do you think go to 156 Homestead? And so they come out their house, see one of the best schools in the city, and they can't go there. I think saying that to children is bad. I don't think that's a good thing to do.
But you also contrast it with the Olmsted Elementary School, which is in North Buffalo, and you have a neighborhood preference and a sibling preference. So you purposely send those children to that school, but then when it goes to the middle school, you don't get that same option to kids on the east side.
Yeah, which
is one of the things that Gary Orfield pointed out when he made his recommendations to make changes. You know what I'm saying? So Gary Orfield did that. But all right, let's get to the next question. I see our last guest is here, and we get to get a common council perspective on what's going on. But let's go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess one of the last question I want to ask you as board members, we're talking about all the change, we're talking about all the policy, but let's get into the real of it. Do you think it's even possible for a school board to have impact on the education of Buffalo?
No.
Or is it just, whatever?
We just spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
Can you have impact on education outcomes? I'm talking about kids being able to read, write, and do math on grade level, graduate college and career ready, and contribute to society. Can a school board impact that, or is that just something we're just spinning our wheels on?
Okay, my position on that is this. Responsibility of the board is to make sure that the education system, the administration, and the teachers and the support staff have the resources that they need in order for them to provide quality education to all our kids. We're not educators. That's not our job. Our job is to make sure administratively they have everything they need. Okay, so how do we get there? Administrators come to us. These are the programs we have available. These are the programs we would like to fund. These are the programs that would affect X, Y, and Z. And one of the questions that I always ask whenever they brought a brand new program to the board is, how does that program affect bilingual education and special ed? If you include those two entities in there, then you have my vote.
Well, we know when we look at outcomes, bilingual education and special education are where we got some of our poorest outcomes. So
That's one of the reasons, because all the programs that were designed and brought into the system rarely include provisions to educate the ESL and the special ed.
So what's your answer to this question?
What do you mean?
Do you think the school board can have a positive outcome?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just don't approve programs that do not include all the students.
Okay. Ms. Byrnes, do you think it's possible?
I do. When we see the composition of the board competent, as you alluded to, Carl, and grounded in that commitment to all children, So when Ralph brings up special ed and ESL, I worked on both of those areas relentlessly. And at the high end, you know, that our highest achieving children have needs that may be outside of the mainstream as well. Every child should get what they need to be the most that they can be. The board sets a tone. It vocalizes priorities. If it's effective, it mobilizes people in support of those priorities, and you push and advocate as hard as it takes at whatever level it is.
That seems like, an ideal situation, right? But when and it sounds good, but we're seeing what we see on the board, you know, which is don't seem like people are working together like you're describing. Is it realistic, given, you know, the fact that it's not an appointed school board, it's just elected people, and they get there and they have their own interests and they spend more time arguing with each other than they do doing the things you're talking about? Is it realistic that they can have an impact on education outcomes?
Year one is brutal with a new board. I'm just gonna call it what it is. So, but I also feel that year one in a principal's career is also horrible. It's disruptive, and there's a lot of change, and it is necessary. It is part of the process. If you understand that, you can cut some grace, but you have to have somebody who can effectively pull all of that diverging opinion and background together to get it to do the focusing that we need on kids and on all kids. When I think about Idris Wajed, okay, he's a Renaissance man in the middle of us. He told me a story once about, and I'm not going to go what school or anything, but that the culture of low expectations almost killed him as a kid. Okay, we need a culture of high expectation for every kid.
So it sounds like you said it's possible, but it's very difficult.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
All right.
I remember interviewing for a superintendent, interviewing people. And I kept asking the question of the board, why are you always leaning toward somebody that's come up in the system, okay, that, oh, he knows the system, he knows this, he knows that. He is so wrecked by the time he reaches an opportunity to run for superintendent, that you can't change it. You need a fresh face. Maybe somebody not even in education, somebody that has a management expertise that can manage, because the education part messes everything up.
You know, it's really...
They got administrators walking around City Hall. I don't know if I went over there a couple times and walked around the floors. They got people that have no idea what to do. No idea.
But here's what I think interesting about what you're saying.
Money.
I think it's two things interesting about what you're saying. The first thing is, when I first got involved with doing some national concern work, yes, we went down to a school board in North Carolina. The top superintendent in the country was a guy named Mo Green, right? And Mo Green was not an academic. He was not an educator. He was a lawyer. He actually was I think the CFO for the district, and he ended up in that position. Because of the superintendent, they needed him there interim, and he get in there and he did a great job. No education background, right?
Yeah.
And he said his position was that in order to run a school district is more like a business. He said I hire a chief academic officer to run the education spot. He said, but I got 60 buildings I gotta manage. He said, you know the things that an academic has no idea they have to deal with in terms of the politics, in terms of the budget, in terms of the state. He said, you get an academic in there, they don't understand that stuff. That's a difficult thing to ask an academic to do. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, does it make more sense to have somebody who not necessarily an educator, somebody who's come up, who's been a teacher, a principal, and a superintendent, you know, are they the best prepared to run a school district?
Somebody in management.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because thank you, Demone has joined us, who's a former council member, who's a former education chair too. So from your perspective, we had a bunch of conversations, but I want you to weigh on this because you worked in City Hall. Do you think the school district should go from elected seats to a mayoral-controlled school board? Do you think that's something, as a city, we should be looking at, as somebody who worked in City Hall, as somebody who was over education?
And if I can add to that, I mean, this is an important point because obviously you were the chair of the education committee. So you understood, you technically, were the person who looked at the budget, because as citizens, we don't get the right to vote on our budget. The only people who get the right to vote on our budget is the school board and the common council, who ultimately, well, the common council at least gets to look at the budget and say, but here's the realistic, to Aymanuel's point, should we be looking at a different model that includes a mayoral appointment with common council approval?
So when I was on the school board, remember I got there as a punishment. It was like, you got to do the school board because I wasn't part of the majority at that time. And then we made it into something.
That's right.
We did. We was like, all right, because the question was, where was the return on the investment? Because we was giving half of our tax dollars to the school board.
That's right.
What are we getting out of it? And how can we acclimate the Board of Education in building blocks?
But don't go past that too fast. Let people understand that half of the tax levy that we pay in the city of Buffalo goes to the school board, and how much say-so do you have on how that money is spent?
None.
So you give half our tax dollars to the school board and you have no say. So if they take the money and waste it and don't get no good outcome, you have to just keep giving them the money?
Yes, by state law.
That's state law.
So should we change the state law? Because if I live in the suburbs, I get to vote on that budget every year. And if I don't like the budget, I can vote it down.
Yes.
So why in the city why don't we have that right?
It's by state law, and then if you increase the budget, you can't go back. You gotta keep it at the level that you
That's
funded
what it
at
was before,
the previous year.
Yeah.
So do you think a mayoral controlled school board would change that?
Yeah, see, we talked about this. We debated this issue quite some time. We did some research. I seen some white papers on it. I think it's a combination, honestly. I think it should be a combination, especially because if you have a mayoral appointment and of people who are getting half of the school board, and there's no general vote where you can say, no, change this, change that, but you do have that on the actual school board, I think it should be some type of mayoral and probably even a council appointee on the school board. Not necessarily where they be the majority, because I still do believe in equal rights and equal representation of the elected school board members. But I think that there should be some people on the school board that can have some influence that represents the city.
So you think a hybrid model?
A hybrid model.
Understand, we have partial elected, partial appointed. Just in the hybrid, who's the majority, the appointed or the elected?
That's where it always go back and forth.
Because that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to boil down. Whoever got that fifth vote,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying, is going to control the school board, right?
And that fifth vote always comes on the different factors. Just politics being politics,
All right. Well, in the short term, you think we should switch to a different model?
I would like to see a hybrid model. I really would. I would like to see a combination of both. I haven't grinded it down to who will have the most.
Right.
But I do believe that.
But you don't think we should keep doing what we're doing now? You think we should do something different?
Yes, I think we should do something different.
So from your, why isn't that something that we have done? Do you think we had the same mayor for 20 years, so obviously something is different now. We about to elect a new mayor, it's a lot of new leadership, fresh blood coming into City Hall. So why do you think in the past we haven't done that? Is it just too much? Is the politics too much? Or what do you think has always been an issue from stopping us from going to that place?
The wheels of government move very slow.
And the power of the union is very strong. We can sugarcoat if we want to, but the Buffalo Teachers Federation is one of the most powerful unions in the country, and that's not something that they want to see happen.
Well, and if I can add to that, I'm pretty sure everyone here, with one exception, is old enough to remember when the school board was the seed ground for growing the city administration's next mayors, and there were some appointments that did not serve us well. I'm just going to leave it there.
Well, it was a
okay?
time where it was
I don't need to
literally
name any
right, but it was a
names.
time where it was even up to now, where people go there on their way to another office.
Exactly.
In other words, you want to be a judge, you want to be in a position, you go, you sit on, serve your time on the school board on your way somewhere else. But it goes to this point of, are we getting the best qualified candidates? And here we are. I guess then let's kind of ask everybody answer this question, all right? We are at an inflection point in the city of Buffalo. We've had the same leadership for a long time. It was hard for things to change. We've seen a change in our congressmen. We've seen a change in our state legislator. We've seen a change in our county legislature. We've seen a change in our mayor. Literally,
Faces have
The
changed.
faces have changed.
so
System stays the same.
okay, so you got to explain that, right? Because here's the point, though. The point is that those faces were the same for a long time, right? And so now you have different faces. And you also, in some cases, have different generations of people. You have a whole nother, you got millennials coming in. So the question is, at this moment in time, can there be a change made so that we don't spend the next 30 years doing the same thing we did for the past 30 years? Yes or no? We'll start down there with you and work our way back.
And I'll put it to you like this. Before, when we got to the education committee, and there weren't things happening that we would like to see, and the push came. And we started to see some movement. It may not have been the grandiose movement that we wanted, but we did see movement because power concedes nothing without demand. It never did, and it never will. And we started demanding some changes, and we saw some changes. It was better than what it was. The attention on certain things was better than it was. We had tried to walk in school bus. We got some things.
You saying if the community make a demand right now, in this moment with the new people, that's your best chance at change, is making some demands right now.
Absolutely.
Next 30 years, are we gonna have the same thing, or can we do something now with this leadership to make it different?
We got a guy that just took the office, he's gonna run next year, Scanlon, okay? He grew up in my house. He hung around in my house all the time with my kids. I knew his father, Skanoots, they called him. He was a Griffin guy. He was part of the success of the Griffin administration for 4 terms, 5 terms? You know, they were successful in cleaning house in City Hall and getting rid of the Democratic machine, the Joe Krangle machine, the Peter Crotty machine that ran City Hall, okay, and just created jobs just for the sake of no-show and take care of the brother-in-law and all the nonsense. We have evolved since then. I'm not saying City Hall is perfect. Under Byron Brown, Byron wouldn't make those hard decisions. He wouldn't cut staff, okay? Scanlon will. Maybe not right away, because he's got to get elected again next year. But this guy is a hard guy. And I've talked to him personally about this one issue, because I think we have so many jerks walking around in City Hall, okay, doing nothing, okay, or living off the fat of the land, that it's time to clean house and bring your tax structure down, because that's going to be inviting for development and for businesses to expand in the city of Buffalo. We don't paint a good picture I'm a businessman. Okay, I'm probably the largest taxpayer, or one of the largest taxpayers after HSBC Bank in the city. I pay millions of dollars in taxes. You know, am I frustrated? Yeah, I'm so frustrated that you haven't heard a peep out of me, because I just can't stand it anymore, and I've sort of come to accept the status quo. But it's wrong. It's so wrong. Okay, the people have a right to raise their families, the kids have a right to get educated, and we have an obligation as leaders in the community to do something to encourage that and expand it. I think busing is nonsense. The money saved on busing, lower the class sizes, those little things mean a lot.
So you saying that we can right now, in this moment, with this next generation, we can actually do something to make the next 30 years different than the last 30 years,
yeah,
but we got to make
Number one, you got a good guy in City Hall. You can talk to that kid. You could, and I call him a kid. He's a man. You could talk to Chris Scanlon whenever you want. He's got an open door. You walk right in, and if for some reason you can't get in the door, you just call me. I'll get you in the door, all right? And he'll listen to you. And he'll listen to these ideas, all right? You've been living with the frustration of Byron had shields up, okay? He had somebody, he'll take care of it, and all that. He wasn't running his own show. I mean, what has he done? The first thing he's, on his OTB appointment, he's appointed 3 or 4 of his friends to high-paying jobs because he's a politician. He's a politician first, okay? And that, for him, is the most important part of
Well, again, we're talking about going forward, though. You think there's an opportunity right now for it to be better for the next 30 years?
Having this guy in there in City Hall is awesome.
All right.
And I mean, he was in the Common Council. He worked his way up. He became council president. And yes, by events, he's now.
So you're encouraged by the guy that's there now?
Oh,
okay.
yes,
Ralph.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity.
I don't know that much about him.
No, I'm not talking. I'm talking about just the whole across the board new leadership that we've got. So is there a chance that there's something can be done to make the next 30 years better than the past 30 years?
I would say it's possible, but the challenges are great. And the reason I say the challenges are great, because this city is a one-party city. This is a Democratic city. So if you're not a Democrat, don't even bother asking, because you're going nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay? So if that's where you're going to get all your folks from, the mindset's gonna be the same. It's just gonna be different faces.
So you saying this is the status quo? It's almost like what Demone just was saying, that the faces have changed, but the system's the same.
That's right, and if you deviate in any way, you're gonna pay the price for the same people that put you there.
So more than likely, even with the new leadership, you think we're gonna get more of the same?
Well, I think Scanlon, being the younger that he is and everything, he seems to be kind of fair-minded, a little bit that I know about him, but I don't know how much, how much will he will have to oppose the power.
So the status quo is a strong machine.
Absolutely.
Okay, Sarah?
I would like to offer a suggestion for what power might argue regardless of whether they have the seat or not. Try this idea. There are people who are working in our schools and in administration who are not at the top, who have been there for years and years. And some leadership will point at those working people who are parents and taxpayers and say they're the problem. But I want to tell you that if we actually talked to them and listened to them about the stupid processes that exist, Carl, I can agree with you on some of that, and what could make things work better. You get some ideas that are not well informed and that might not solve all the problems, but I'm telling you, there are gold nuggets in there of wisdom and understanding, and these people are never even asked.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you how I see what you're talking about. When the current superintendent, Dr. Tanja Williams, when they brought her up to be considered for superintendent, I was totally against it. You know what I'm saying? We said, do a national search. She's never been a superintendent. How you gonna take her, and make her the superintendent for the second largest school district in New York State? She's not ready for this, right? And again, the board didn't do a national search. They went with her, and in my opinion, she's turned out to be one of the better superintendents we had. I mean, she's born and raised in Buffalo. She understands the system. She knows the people. And she was able to bring people in the room and collaborate in a way because she knew about the stuff that these people that we bringing in from out of town, it takes them a year or two to figure out just, where stuff is at. And they just the learning curve. And then they come from places where they didn't make a difference. And then we bring them in, think they're going to make a difference here. I thought it was something to be said about bringing somebody inside who understood us and what was going on. I think we got, some better results from that.
And here's another suggestion that I know receives a lot of pushback, but we have done a terrible job of genuinely implementing authentically what restorative justice is about. And when we are criminalizing young people at the rates they are, when we are pushing them out of school with suspensions that are back to as bad as I ever remember them being, and we went to court over.
Yes, we did.
That we can do better than this.
Right. And I want to say, because I was on a call today with the CHW, and they talked about not just restorative justice, but restorative practices. You know what I'm saying? Because justice is the beginning of the conversation, but practices is really where it's implemented. Great points, you know what I'm saying? So we only got time for one more to give everybody a chance to wrap up. So how you want to wrap up?
I want to first thank you all for joining this conversation. I'm going to do this. I'm going to close the radio show, but I'm still going to let y'all get y'all last words out on the live stream because the radio show is technically over. So for those listening on WUFO, we want to thank you for listening to us for this past hour. Again, if you want any further information, go to For the Voters of Buffalo, New York, BuffaloNY.org, For the Voters of BuffaloNY.org. We have voter guides and stuff we're going to be passing around the city this weekend, so be on the lookout for us. If you have, be on the lookout for us on Saturday for the appearance. Anything you want to say to the radio audience before we close?
Yeah, power to the voters.
Power to the voters. So, thank you to WUFO. So, the question, I want to answer the question you asked. Yeah, I want to answer the question you asked, and then I want to give people chances to respond. My perspective on it is, what I think people don't understand is most people get into elected politics to win the race. They don't really care about whether they can have an impact or not. You have very few people who get elected who want to actually do something different, who actually want to make a change, and those are few and far between. And I think you know those people, you feel those people. When those people get elected, you see that they're really trying, that they want something different, and that they're doing something different. But then you also see the people who get elected and they enjoy their seat and they chill, and then
Maintain the status quo.
then 3 years later they show up on your doorstep. Hey, I'm up for re-election. You want to re-elect me? I haven't done nothing in 3 years, but So I think that's what I've seen in my experience. I've seen both. I've seen some good elected school board members. I've seen some bad elected school board members. I've seen some good elected council. I've seen some bad elected council. I think it depends on the person. That's why it's so important for you to get to know who you're electing. Because if you don't know who you're electing and you put somebody in there who's just going to keep going with the status quo, you get what you deserve.
Well, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. I think, obviously, if you want to have impact, you got to win, right? So you want to win, and I think go together. But to your point, Demone, I think you made a really interesting point, that at the end of the day, when you get elected, you come into a system that's already been there, and it's a well-oiled system. And the question is, can an elected individual really have impact if the system is not, responsive to the things they're talking
I
about?
want to close that question, and then you close the remarks. Can an elected official actually
If
impact?
the people is with you, if they got your back. Perfect example. It used to be this quad party at Canisius College, right? And they would, the end of the semester, they had this big party. They'd be out there getting tore down, drinking. I mean, it was crazy. And they was hurting themselves. And so they came to the block club, came to me, said, we need this shut down. I said, all right, well, it's going to be pushback. They was like, we got you. As soon as the TV comes, tell them to talk to us. And I did some maneuvers. It was kind of rough, but they shut it down. The students, the TV, the school administration, they came in screaming, hollering, the news came, all the block club came out and said, we wanted it. Never heard nothing yet, and it's not a quad party to this day.
Wow. So, Demone, it's like what you're saying is that we getting the level of the government we deserve. You're saying if people make a demand, it's going to change. If people don't make demands, it's going to stay the same way.
We do a good job of putting people into the office, but keeping our hands on them while they're in there,
Terrible job.
we're not doing a good
We
job
do a
at that.
terrible job of that. I agree
We
with
put
that.
them in, so we're allowing them to go in and treat it like a little celebrity status and not do the work because we ain't following up with them.
Wow.
See, I come from a different time where all them block clubs, we grew up with them ladies, and let us do something crazy.
They showing up.
They showing up.
And they will whoop you for a dime.
When I was in the massacre, they would come up into that office. They would either come bring some food, if you did something right, or if you did something they ain't like, they was gonna be there and they would check you.
So you saying that really at this point, if there's going to be a possibility for the next 30 years to be better, it's really going to be up to the citizens
Yes.
to make demands and
Yes.
follow through and hold people accountable.
Yes.
All right, Sherry.
Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. And I think.
Well, he has a closing question, so just let's put it in the comment.
No, just anything you want to say in closing. And do you think, as an elected person, you can actually make a change? Anybody, any person you elect, do you think it's possible to make a change? Any closing remarks you have?
I do think so. And I'm very sad that your impression, I can't speak to other elected offices. I only served on the school board. And there may have been days that somebody may have debated how well qualified or informed or knowledgeable somebody was. But I had the privilege to serve with people whose commitment and desire for better I wouldn't even question. And I think fire in the belly. If you don't bring the fire in the belly, you're not going to get anything done. And I think that we can do that. We need to inspire your generation. Wow. I was on the board that helped to put Stefan Wright on as a student representative. I mean, those are some of the kinds of changes that it's the new generation. We have to figure these kids out. We shouldn't have a 21-year-old on America's Got Talent or whatever the show was, who is working in a daycare and is asked, what does it mean to you to be on this show? And that young man cried, and he said, my fiance is everything. She has believed in me, and this has given me back hope. 21 years old. Why do our children have no hope? Man, get up and work on it.
All right.
That's the fire in the belly.
Fire. So for you, it's the same thing. It really comes down to what people, as we as a community do. Wow.
Well, I think yes, you can. As an individual, you can. You have to identify what your goal is going to be and exactly how you're going to get there. And more importantly than anything is you have to be true and make sure you don't, under no circumstances, compromise your integrity, because once you do that, you're done.
All right.
Any closing remarks?
I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, we have something that's, hasn't really evolved. It's just been nonsense and a continued nonsense. The people that should be sitting, listening to this conversation are those people that we've elected to go to Albany, okay, that we've elected to go into City Hall, okay, so that they can hear the voice of the community from leaders in the community, okay? We're leaders here, okay? The everyday common man, he can identify certain parts of the problem, okay, but he can't sit there and articulate the whole volume of anguish that he's suffering or that his kid is suffering in this system. It doesn't have a proficiency level that's acceptable to anybody by any means. I mean, it's a combination of a whole bunch of problems. You got problems with the teachers union, that have to be addressed, many cases from Albany, okay, getting rid of some of these rights that they have and cleaning up that act. And who's gonna do that? You gotta get Sean Ryan, Tim Kennedy, these other clowns, okay? Get them in a room and tell them, this is what we want. And this is what you better work on, or we're working against you next time, all right? These guys are getting elected for 2 years. I mean, they're on a short fuse to get out there and produce and write some bills and help correct the problems that we have. I've watched this my entire career. We need effective people in leadership positions, okay, instead of politicians. Byron's a nice guy, but Byron was not a leader, okay? Not by any means. What, 5 terms he's been in there? He's been there for a long time. And he keeps getting reelected because they don't put up any.
Well, I just want to be clear that, one of the things that we was real clear about when we came here today is that everybody got the right to their own opinion. We didn't come here to get people to agree. I mean, everybody have their own lived experience. Everybody, comes from, where they come from. And we wanted to hear the perspective of a diverse group of people from different parts of the city. And so that we could at least have that on the table. So as we begin to talk to school board members, prospective school board members, we could draw on y'all knowledge as former school board members, as former education committee chair, to say, here's some of the wisdom we got from them. But here's just what this comes down to you. This comes down to, I agree what's been said here at the end. This community is going to decide its future. You know what I'm saying? It ain't going to be no better than we require it to be. Our schools are not going to be any better if we vote or don't vote and then go back home and don't follow up with some demands. If we don't follow up and monitor what's going on. Ultimately, the future is on us. We have to make it better. I mean, we can't accept excuses about the problem is in Albany, or the problem is in Washington, or the problem is with the union. We can't accept those. We simply have to make demands and have them go back and figure out solutions to those problems. And those communities that do that, they get better outcomes. Communities that accept excuses, you get the excuse. That's the outcome you get. So I'm excited about the possibilities of the future. I'm excited about the young people that we have coming up, and I'm excited about the community that we're in. I think right now this community is in a position, we at an inflection point, and I think it's gonna be what we make it. I think there's gonna be better 10 years, 15, 30 years from now, because we're gonna make it better. And so for the voters of Buffalo, New York, I remember when we started the idea of moving the school board date because we wanted to get you the opportunity to be involved. It took us 10 years, but we finally got it changed. We changed the date. We wanted to get less signatures needed to get on the board so the union wouldn't control the process. You know what I'm saying? We got that. Now we got people that's running for the office that don't require union endorsement. You know what I'm saying? We wanted to make sure that people had some reasonable compensation for being on the board. You was getting $5,000 for being on the board in 2018, the same as you were in 1972. That's all the way up to $28,000 now. So we're doing things that we think will get more people involved, more people engaged, because we ain't just talking about it being better. We're doing the work to make it better. We need everybody to join in. Go to forthevotersofbuffalonewyork.org. Make sure you get the information on all the candidates. Make sure you find out their position on the issues. And here's the most important thing. Make sure you go vote. You can go vote today. All the way through till Sunday you can vote, and then you can vote again or vote on Tuesday if you haven't voted. So we need everybody to get engaged, everybody to vote, and make sure that we make this community better than we found it.
Mic drop. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for commenting, everybody who tuned in on the radio. We appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all Saturday. Peace.